How are we, guys? Another huge episode of the Almost Made It podcast coming your way. This week we had on old friend and biohacker Lucas Aoun.
We spoke about how we got into biohacking, also the biggest problems in today's society with male health and optimization. And he also gave us a lot of tips for all you males watching how to optimize your testosterone levels.
Let's jump straight in. Welcome back to yet another edition of the Almost Made It podcast, proudly brought to you by Cultural Club. This week, we have another huge guest. We are smashing out the guests week in, week out. Also, a quick shout out to you guys who have been listening so far. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow. YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Instagram, all the rest of it. You know the drill. We have an old friend, a very old friend, an ex-teammate, who is now absolutely taking the biohacking space by storm. He's known as Ergogenic Health on Instagram, or Boost Your Biology.
Yep.
Has thousands and thousands of followers across social media, has spoken all across the globe, preaching what he loves. Ladies and gentlemen, Lucas Aoun, what's going on?
Lads, yeah, I'm stoked to be here. It's going to be a fun discussion, fun chat.
So we basically almost grew up together.
Yeah.
It was a fair few years playing football together.
Yeah.
I think probably from like 11, 12, I want to say,
probably.
to probably 18? I can't remember, man. It's been
Tuesday,
that long.
Thursday night trainings.
Saturdays.
Yeah.
Overseas.
We've had a few overseas trips.
Yeah.
Did you come to Malaysia? Were you in Malaysia?
I don't think so. Wasn't that between playing for
Vic and
Vic
I think
versus
also.
Malaysia?
And then you came to Hungary, but yeah?
Yeah, I went to Budapest.
Yeah, that was a big one.
That was mad.
Yeah. Let's get in, man. Basically, we'll start from the start. So we'll talk about football for a bit, all right? So how did you where did you grow up? How did football come into the picture?
Actually, if I look back at the introductions to becoming a soccer player, it was actually my grade 1 teacher. At during recess time, she noticed that I was like goalkeeper in the schoolyard, and she noticed that I was pretty good. So then I remember returning after recess, she's like, "Oh, have you ever considered playing soccer?" And I'm like, maybe it's a pretty good idea. Like I went home that night, told mum and dad, I'm like, "Oh, my grade 1 teacher, shout out to Sophie Trepevsky."
Of course, sir.
She's like, "Oh, you should consider playing." So then I was like, yeah, I started playing for Yarraville.
Oh, yeah.
So Yarraville Football Club was the first club. And then from there, just, fell in love with the game and just loved the discipline, loved hanging out with the boys, going to training, just getting your boots on, getting dirty, like slide tackling and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, we remember that. Copped a few of those in my career. And then from there, like when did it start, I guess, becoming a little bit more serious?
Yeah, so it probably would have been around the time that I started playing for Essendon Royals, where Bobby McGuinness was my coach, and he was also the women's state coach, like the women's Victorian coach. And he sort of just elevated my like discipline and performance and just like more just focused on like taking it more seriously. I remember we were playing at like Darebin at the time. Like, geez, I'll never forget those late nights at Darebin. Even when we're like literally being in school, like
8 p.m. training starting. Yeah, I remember that.
And we get home at like 10:30. It's like, what am I going to have in the car? Like a protein shake and
It's true.
Dad will get me like a Snickers bar.
They were the days, man.
Good memories. And then from there, I think after that was getting into the state team was a big thing. I remember Harris got into the team the year before me, and I was so upset that I didn't make it. I remember finding out, I was like, actually, the day I found out I didn't make it, obviously I cried. Yeah. I was pretty disappointed by it. Being I was 16 years of age. So it's like, obviously, you're a sensitive little boy back then. And now looking back at it, it's just like, yeah, you know what? Part of the journey, you're going to have setbacks.
Big deal.
So, yeah.
Did you, I guess, have that goal of turning pro? Because for people that don't know, we played together in a team that were tipped to, basically a lot of us were tipped to make it. We won absolutely everything, played tournaments overseas against big clubs, Real Madrid, Panathinaikos, all these massive. Did you know from then, like, was that always your goal, or were you sort of like, yeah, I'll come along for the ride, see what happens sort of thing?
I always had in the back of my mind, like, have to get an education, do well at school and university as well. Like, I didn't just be like, you know what, stuff that, I'm going to go all in with soccer. Honestly, I think that's because of the people that I was hanging around. They were just sort of like in my ear about like, oh, you got to get an education. Like, even dad was saying, even my grandmother, like, she was like, oh, you'll have to make sure you.
Yeah.
So, like, looking back, I mean, it was the best thing I ever did was like starting soccer, learning how to be very disciplined. And yeah, like, I think after that tournament that we went to in Hungary, that was a critical turning point, because it was a rude awakening of like what it's like in Europe. And like, we think we train hard in Australia, but it's like, you see what they do, how much they commit to it, how much they put in. So it's like, geez, if that's what it takes, man, like, I want to hedge my bets on something else. And I also said to myself, I was like, I think I'm good at soccer, but I think there was a point where I realized I'm good at reading the game. Like, I'm good at like distributing the ball, like passing the ball to like, the midfield, like striker. I had a really good eye for that. But then I realized, I was like, you know what? I feel like I've got potential elsewhere. Like, I think I've got something more to offer the world and contribute more value in a different area. So that's when I like pivoted. I decided, look, I'm going to take up this naturopathy degree, which was like a 4-year degree. And I'm like, I'm still young. At the time, I was involved in like a startup as well. It was like Australia's first nootropic supplement startup. And again, I was working there for 2 years unpaid. So I was just like learning about what not to do, the mistakes. And then, it's just been an incredible journey.
Did your passion for like naturopathy and all that sort of intertwine with performance in football? Is that what sort of got you into that world?
Exactly, yeah. So like, when people ask, how did I get into biohacking? I say it's actually through experimenting with, remember back in the day?
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
In the car.
Jeez, that's crazy. Yeah, back in the day, I was like researching things that are like new and novel and exciting, like peptides, supplements and things. And I was like, I'm going to give these things a try, test them out, see how they affect my performance. Like, some of the things I was taking back in the day were like great for like endurance. I always had a pretty good like lung capacity. Harris and I were like usually like pretty fit with the runs after, like doing the runs. Nick Pantazzi.
Man, Jesus Christ. Wow. Yeah, these were the days.
The days.
So did you have obviously experimented with a lot? Because I remember like you used to talk about this stuff all the time.
All the time, man.
Did you have any bad experiences that you can remember?
Yeah, I definitely did. I mean, if we look back at all the different experiments I ran on the thing is, I worked in my dad's pharmacy, so I had access to pretty much all the different over-the-counter vitamins and supplements. So I was like, I'm going to test out acetyl-L-carnitine, I'm going to try creatine, glutamine, all the amino acids. I'm going to learn what they do for me, and then also like, what does the research say? And I loved the research side, and I think you guys could see that. Like, I was just passionate about that. And there were things that I tried that were like not really related to like soccer performance, but more so for like memory and cognition that actually like threw me off in a bit of a different direction in terms of like making me a little bit more anxious or a little bit more tense. And so I felt like, there's certain things that I realized over the years that like there are certain pathways in the brain that you should just completely not interact with. Okay, just let it go. Don't try and fiddle with it. Don't try and be a superhero and try and like crank it up, because you'll end up causing yourself a bit of anxiety or tension, and then you can't like socialize at parties. Like, I would go to parties and shit, and I just couldn't even like communicate or relax. I'm like, it's just like full on.
Did you find any particular like supplement did that?
Funnily enough, it was actually one that I was using a lot of. It was actually cordyceps. So cordyceps made me really motivated and focused, but I just could not relax at social gatherings and parties. And I realized that because I'd like sort of like look at everyone else interacting and chatting, and I'm like, why is everyone else so chilled? Yeah. And I'm just fucking so intense, bro.
What is that, for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, so looking back at it now, like this is where like I was like putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, like the pathways and the mechanisms. So cordyceps, what I learnt was great for like VO2 max and circulation and DHT and all that stuff. but it actually increases a pathway called glutamate, and increasing glutamate increases like overthinking and just general paranoia. And yeah, so I realized like this is working on that AMPA receptor. Like I don't want to touch that. And then I was like, okay, let's like ditch this. And when I ditched it, I just remembered like becoming a bit more of the person that I wanted to be, which was like more social, like better to interact with people and just less intense and less serious about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just quickly, what do you have on your nose, man?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a nasal dilator.
Yeah.
So nasal strip. And basically I've only just put it on 2 days ago. So basically what it does is it opens up the nasal cavity so you get better oxygenation and circulation. Because actually a lot of guys that are into bodybuilding and stuff, and you'd know about the supplements like for nitric oxide.
Mm-hmm.
So nitric oxide is actually, which gives you pumps and makes you feel fuller in the gym. Nitric oxide is actually produced in the nasal cavity.
Right.
So if you have like better circulation, opened up nasal cavity, you have better nitric oxide production. Yeah, better pumps.
Yeah, give me one. A little more. So obviously you got into this space, pretty niche sort of, or even in Australia. I'd say in Australia.
Yeah.
It's
Especially
so
with
niche.
the laws here, man, with certain supplements and stuff.
Exactly.
They ban pre-workouts here, man.
You can't get anything. When did you sort of realize you could actually make a career out of this?
Like I was saying before, probably when I got that shout out from this doctor in Dubai or like Saudi Arabia, I can't remember where it was. He must have seen my surname and be like, oh, this guy must be Lebanese or something. And he, you know, that's when I knew. I was like, all right, so I've got attention from that guy. Who else's attention can I get with my quality content? Like who else can I? So I remember back in the day, I'd go on Instagram and I'd tag like big profiles in my posts, just hoping that they'd see it. And if they see it, maybe they'd like it. And if they'd like it, then maybe they would share it. And that strategy worked because what I did was I tagged the biggest biohacker in the world, Ben Greenfield. I don't know if you guys have heard of Ben Greenfield. He's like a Spartan marathon. He's a freak, like athletic freak. And I'll never forget the day when I've been tagging him. And then eventually once he noticed one of my posts, it was on a particular fruit. Like it was lychee fruit, I think. So niche. Like whoever would have thought. And then he sent me a DM. He said, it's like, hey man, love your page here. Here's my cell number. Let's connect.
Jeez.
And I was on a date at the time.
I'm going.
I literally see you later. I left the restaurant, bro. I was like, see you later. Forget about you. And I'm like, I received the message. I saw it, and I'm like, this is the turning point.
Yeah.
Because I knew that if I get in the good books with him, then he's gonna like share all my stuff. And then after that, the biggest turning point was like getting on his podcast. And I think I was the youngest guest ever on his podcast. He's recorded over like 1,000 episodes, and he's getting like, he was getting like, massive downloads. And I was like, far out.
Massive.
And after the podcast got released, like you just see offer after like client after client. And still to this day, even though it's 2.5 years later, hey, where did you first hear about Lucas? Oh, on the Ben Greenfield podcast. Yeah. 2.5 years later, we've got all the best clients and leads from that podcast.
Crazy how that works.
So yeah, he changed my life. Like, and I keep reminding him of it. I keep on sending him messages saying, thanks, bro, you're the best.
So what do you actually sell, we'll say?
Yeah.
Because I know you put out unbelievable information across Instagram, YouTube, and everything else. But what is the product?
Yeah, so that's it can be a little bit confusing from the outside to like know, what does Lucas even do? How does he even make money? What does he even sell? So we'll start with like one of the 3 main income streams. The first one is like I list products on my website. I don't hold any stock. I just list supplements and health products that I've vetted and I approve and I recommend. Mm-hmm. So they're like all over the world. Most of them are from the US because the US is the best when it comes to like this sort of stuff. So that's like, and then I get an affiliate commission based upon the clicks because I'm getting a lot of traffic. Yeah. So there's no like overheads. I don't have to ship out products. but it's built up over time. So it's become like a decent income stream for me. Second is I was selling courses. So the first one I developed was like a sleep optimization course, which I knew was going to like be really in high demand because everyone's got shit sleep these days. So like my education around what you can do to optimize sleep from a nutrition perspective, like lifestyle. Then from there was the testosterone optimization course. That's when I like fell in love with this, like how can we max out testosterone as high as possible naturally? Got my blood work back after testing different methods and protocols, got it all the way up to near 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. And I'm like, fuck, I think a lot of guys would appreciate this, what I've done, and they'd want to learn, like, how did Lucas do it? I want to do it too. That's when I built a course. And now, in addition to the courses, I also do group coaching. So I offer like a group coaching service and also one-on-one consulting as well. So then I've got my hands in many other pies as well. Like I've been hired to formulate products for companies because I love like supplement formulating. And the new and upcoming venture that I'm taking on this year, which I haven't mentioned anywhere publicly yet, is actually
world first, right? Yeah,
Exclusive.
is actually that I'll be releasing my own supplements this year. So that's where it's at. People have said, "Why don't you do it?"
I always thought that.
Yeah,
actually.
no.
I'm like, man,
You were at one stage were you doing one? I remember back in the day. It was in the new
Brain
topic.
X.
Yeah, that's right. I
That's
remember
right.
that.
So I had a concept, like an idea around a sachet that you add to coffee that makes it more energizing and gives you more energy and stuff like that. So that was Brain X. We got a lot of interest in that. But then what happened, like mum and dad were just like, it's going to be a lot to fund the project. Like you're better off making money through your education. So I was like, you know what, I might as well stick with the courses for now, build all that up like solid until when I'm a bit older with a larger following, then I'll release my own supplements. And like people, you should see the comments on YouTube. They're just like, when are you releasing? Like they just ask for it.
Yeah.
Because they know that what I'm going to release is going to be badass.
Yeah.
So
Can you tell us what you're going to release?
Any,
Is that a secret?
the first product is going to be a product that my audience wants the most, and that is going to be a natural testosterone optimization supplement. So it's going to be
Try that one.
yeah, it's going to be something that I know. Like, have you guys heard of More Plates, More Dates?
Yeah,
Derek.
Derek. Yeah.
So his number one selling product right now is his testosterone booster, like a natural Sigma Gorilla Mind. And I look at all the other like Greg O'Gallagher, Keno Body, he's got his own. Greg Doucette.
Yeah.
What
a legend.
Most annoying voice in the world. He's good. He's good value.
Yeah. Make sure you train harder than last time.
Yeah. Good advice.
I actually like that advice. So he's released one. Like you just look at like all the bigger players, like they've all got one that they recommend. But I look at what they've released and I'm like, man, I can make something better than this.
Where do you even start though? Like,
in terms of formulating it? Well, that's where I think my X factor lies, is my ability to like decipher research and see what's like hot or what's got potential that no one else is talking about or no one else is using. And what I like to think is I'm at the point now where I'm somewhat like the influencer of influencers, because they're looking at me to see what I talk about, and then they're going to go and create content about it. So I have to be careful like what I talk about, because I've actually mentioned some things to some other companies and now they've literally gone out and they've stolen my ideas.
do you get a lot of backlash at all? Like, do you get into
haters?
Yeah. I get like, you're not a doctor, but that's like, I'm a naturopath, which is like 4 years of study. I get that.
Yeah.
I get a little bit around like when I create content that's like, do not take this.
Yeah.
The ones that take it get
of course.
cranky.
It's like you're not targeting them, but you're just giving advice. But I know what you mean. It's like you insulted them personally.
Yeah. I get some funny usernames on YouTube as well, man, like Mr. Potato Head.
Honestly. Going back to the supplement on testosterone, I've always found it fascinating. Like, you said they got a sort of it's a combination of ingredients.
Yeah.
When you're formulating something like that, is it like sort of you don't just get all right, these all work for testosterone. Let's all put them in a capsule. Because obviously they can't all work together. Is that right? There's got to be a certain way that you know those certain.
It's a great question, like synergy and understanding.
Yeah, because it might not affect the body in that way with another ingredient.
Yeah, that's important.
So how do you decipher that?
So it comes down to that's where it comes down to understanding how they work, and mechanisms. Because some of them would have overlapping effects.
Of course.
So it's like, why would you have both ingredients that do the same thing at the same dosage, doing the same thing? So it comes down to understanding the intricacies around dosages and
I guess that's your X factor that that instead of just putting all these ingredients together.
Yeah. Well, that's what I feel like, and it's funny because we attract so many engineers to my brand, and if you think about an engineer's brain, they're all about how does it work.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm the engineer of supplements. Basically, I'm the guy who loves looking at mechanisms, and I think I'm just extremely passionate and addicted to learning that. And it's such a niche thing that hopefully will pay off, in the future.
Just a quick break in between our episode. If you're wondering where you can buy all this unbelievable merch from, where can you get it from, Manny?
So you can get it from our website at culturalclub.com.au. Use the code AMI15 to get yourself 15% off. Now let's get straight back into the episode.
We do a lot of our own research into this. Obviously, being into health, fitness and stuff.
Yeah. Performance,
Performance.
Cognitive performance, anything that can get a bit of an edge. You want to feel good, you want to be sharp and everything.
It's nice to bounce.
It's
it is good.
Andrew Huberman. You guys see him?
Yeah, of course, man.
So he has made the stuff that I talk about legit.
Yeah.
Because he's basically being the voice for the biohacking community.
Yeah.
And now people are like, oh man, this guy's so smart. He knows his stuff. If he's saying it,
course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And look, I don't want to get political in that, but it's very hard in today's society because you got people that, the way things are sort of put out to people, they believe in certain ways. And I'm not saying that's wrong or that's right, but it's very easy to then just, all right, they're, the hippies or whatever, they're this, they're far, it's but if you actually do a bit of research and read why this is good, why this is not, but then it takes that one credible person that everyone's like, all right,
to make
now
it
he says it and it's legit.
Yeah, so whatever he says is gospel.
Yeah, so it's a hard sort of market to...
It is. And also when I first started the Instagram page, I was really focused on being evidence-based. Because there were so many pages out there that were just bullshit.
Literally, take this and it's 100%.
Yeah. I think that's a massive thing for you too because you always cite resources. This is where I read this. This is where it's been proven.
Yeah.
So if anyone even... tries to give you something, you're just read the paper.
Yeah.
Even with your supplements, that's what I love, how you're not every supplement's created equally. Say it's taurine, for example, you have your certain supplier because that's made in quality purposes and it does its job.
When it comes to supplement space and understanding what they do in dodgy supplements, bro, it is actually,
I can imagine.
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. How many fake supplements are out there, man?
I can imagine, man.
How? How have you found this?
They get away because it's not as well regulated as drugs. A pharmaceutical drug, it costs $2 million to get it to market.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a supplement, anyone can just put it in a bottle, pretty much sell it as long as they don't make claims in Australia. But you know what I mean? It has to be...
If you word it right, you can sort of...
Yeah, it's may support...
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly, 100%.
Do you sort of have to be careful now bringing out your own supplement? Is there a lot of
I have to be particularly careful when it comes to podcasting, I've heard. Right. So making claims about the product.
Mm-hmm.
And also one thing we're doing is we're not manufacturing in Australia.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're doing it in the US and we're setting up a US company and we're going to have that set up over there. Which means that, they're still strict over there, but they're not as ruthless as you know who I'm talking about here.
Yeah, we know. What would you say? This is a bit of a question, delving into your brain a little bit. What do you think the biggest problem? Because a lot of our listeners are males.
Men,
men. What would you say the biggest problem in male performance and health is in today's society? Yeah,
lack of motivation and lack of confidence. Lack of motivation / lack of confidence relating to suboptimal testosterone.
Right.
Just guys in their mid-20s, early 30s. Suffering the consequences of low testosterone, and that's affecting their motivation, drive, resilience. And they're like better males. Like they're just not feeling that alpha feeling that we should be feeling. You know, if we want to create a business, create a brand and have that robustness, then I think, you know, that's an important factor.
What do you think are some of the contributing factors to that in today's society?
Yeah, so definitely like poor diet, you know, bad sleep, like EMF exposure, like electronic devices, not getting out in sun, like, you know, wearing sunscreen, things like that. Drinking from like plastic bottles, like eating food from plastic, just like not selecting the right type of exercise. There's a lot of guys that do like, they think that they're training right for hormones, but they're doing just like 6 to 7 kilometer runs where like that steady state shit.
Yourself.
Not too much. Yeah.
Steady state cortisol increasing activities, like it's just not ideal. For testosterone optimization, you guys understand this. It's like weight training, like squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, high intensity activities. Sprinting is one of the things that I was doing to like max out testosterone, and I think that really really moved the needle. And you feel it after you do the session, like you just feel like awesome. You get that growth hormone spike. It's just it's a really common problem that we're seeing, and I just get DMs every single day of guys like, you can imagine my DM inbox is like full of guys that are like needing help with that sort of stuff.
Do you think there's like been a steady, I know I've read a couple sort of research papers, but obviously it's better coming from you. Do you think there's been like a steady decline in test levels in men over the years?
Oh man, if you look at the statistics, like male testosterone levels have declined so significantly that when it comes to blood testing, they actually reduced the average.
Yeah.
So they've actually reduced that max. Used to be like 1,400. And here's me like getting excited that I'm near 1,000. But like if you look back, like our great grandfather,
I was going to say
they would have been like, on average, their average would have been like at least 900 to 1,000, I'd imagine.
Oh, that's probably considered low back.
What's the average now?
The average for men now would be, I'd say, like 460.
Which is low, yeah?
Well, like how can a young 20-year-old like really become the man he wants to be, like with that level?
I think there's a bit of stigma around it as well.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah,
like, the words out of my mouth.
As in like
this whole like testosterone
toxic
optimization.
masculinity?
Yeah, this sort of thing. I think it was probably 6 months ago. Out of curiosity, I was feeling pretty crap.
Yeah.
Right? Like super stressed.
Under the pump. Like
under the pump.
Not sleeping or?
Not sleep.
Yeah.
Terrible sleep.
Yeah.
I'd wake up, motivation zero, just feeling like shit, right? And I wanted to go and get a blood test. So I went to my GP.
Oh, no.
And it was straight away, are you thinking about performance enhancing drugs? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I just want to know what's going on with my body. And it took me so long for them to
they gave you a massive headache, right?
Just like 100,000 questions, like, why do you want to do this?
You're young. That's the best one I get. You're young. I want to see my levels, man. I feel like shit, so it shouldn't be.
It's got nothing to do with me taking drugs or anything like that. I just want to get a better picture of what's going on in my body.
Yeah.
Right? But
it's such an issue, but it's also an issue not just in Australia, but like even America and stuff like. But yeah, it's that should be a human right to be able to see that information. What I do now in terms of like clients, I just say like, man, like if you can get this list of tests, I give them the list of tests. If you can get it done through your local doctor, like good luck.
good luck.
Yeah.
Otherwise, use iMedical, do it privately, and you're just gonna have to pay out of pocket. It's a pain in the ass, but like
you get the results that you want.
Yeah.
See, that's another thing. I think with speaking of like the alpha type male, there's that stigma around it, but it's like that's how males are designed to be.
Yeah.
Like it's like they're trying to. There's a reason why you have a male and a female, because you have the hormones and the traits and characteristics of a male and a female has that,
and it's what they're attracted to.
And it's like, so you can't be a proper male if your hormonal profile isn't what it should be. So I think it's a massive, like, I think you put a study up that in 35 years, I read that and I was astonished.
In like 35 years from now, most men in the Western world will be infertile.
That's unbelievable.
So infertility is so low now.
So crazy.
Sperm counts are dropping. We should have some sperm count competitions.
It's unreal, but man, like think about that, like, man. where do you go from there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It comes down to like, hopefully my voice, Huberman, all that, us talking about it, educating and standing up for it as well. Like just,
Definitely, man.
I think it's just like raising awareness as
Of
well.
course,
Because
man.
like, you know, a lot of people just feel crap and they're just like, oh, I feel crap. Like,
Or
I'll
I'm
get over
depressed
it. Or,
and I'm
you know,
this and that. And sometimes it's simply that you're lacking testosterone or certain
Yeah,
deficiencies,
something,
something,
yeah,
you know.
something's
There's a
wrong.
reason why
Yeah.
you feel that way because
It's not normal to feel
do you
shit.
know what I mean?
exactly.
And I think they're quick. Doctors are quick to. I don't want to get all technical. I'm not a doctor, but quick to say, "Oh, you feel like shit. Yeah, take this." But it's like, man, you got to delve deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as like, you're depressed. Take this. Like there might be reasons, like physically, internally, why you feel that way. So like, I think it's too quickly just take this, you'll get better. There's got to be more research, more like delving done into these situations.
So obviously, as we said, pretty nichey.
super niche.
Yeah, the space you're in. What was the hardest part of like getting this out to people?
What was the hardest part about getting my message out there?
Yeah, like how I guess how do you sell this? You know what I mean?
Probably like I'd say getting the attention of the big dogs. Like
Yeah, of
like getting their attention for me was like when I would create posts on Instagram, I was not thinking about my audience. All I could think about was like Dave Asprey, Paul Saladino, like all these guys that are like up there, Peter Attia, like Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, like all these big names. I just want them to like somewhat like see my content. I just want them to see that I'm like, wow, this guy's talking about stuff that no one else is talking about. And there was a podcast invite that I got onto because of that very reason. It was Mark Smelly Bell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to thank. Thank you, Mark Bell. Like he's actually just blown me up because one of the videos on YouTube got like 1 million, it's like 900,000 views. It was like a snippet from our podcast. Getting his attention and like gaining his like credibility, like gaining his respect meant so much to me because I was like, millions of people respect Mark Bell. If they respect him and he said he speaks super highly of me, like people are going to trust me more. That's the number one thing in business is like building credibility and trust. Like how can I build social trust, social proofing?
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. One of the hardest things that I'm doing now is like I love my brother, like where we work, he works with me. He also does DJing, you know, he does that on the side, but he also has a marketing background, but we're very different. I work at a pace that's, I'm very fast with what I do, but it doesn't mean I'm perfect at what I do. Whereas he's
Perfectionist.
Yeah.
Very nice and easy.
Yeah.
like, if you saw the speed at which I, like, even when I get emails, like I'm just go through them as fast as I can.
Yeah.
It's like the more you can churn out in a day, the more the quicker you're going to get to your goal. And I've always learned like the key in entrepreneurship is speed, like speed and focus. If you can just get so much work done in a per unit of time, like you're going to be productive. But the hardest part has been like just being like trusting that what James tells me is going to be like actually beneficial. Like particularly when it comes to like performing ads, like scripting ads, like it's hard. Like I actually find that very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. What would you say is the biggest sort of, podcast, but also event that you've been invited to so far?
Probably last year being invited to speak in Amsterdam at this is like the most prestigious biohacking summit. So that was like the World Biohacking Summit. And then there was another one in Dubai, which I'll probably get invited back to this year again. That was the first one in Dubai. There was also a podcast invite I got invited to speak on in Las Vegas. This guy called Sean Kelly. I don't know, Digital Social Hour or something like that.
Maybe.
But I couldn't logistically make it. Like I was in Europe. It was just
Too hard.
Yeah,
too hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure this year there's going to be some bigger. Like my goal is to eventually Like I want to be sitting in front of Joe Rogan one day. Like I would love to make that happen.
So
That'd be
is
a
that
mad podcast.
the end goal?
Yeah.
That's the end goal.
Speaking of fat Cuban with Joe Rogan.
That would be too bad. Though. That'd be a laugh. Obviously, you've gone to this world biohacking seminar. It's obviously enough of a niche to get a lot of people involved.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it be as big here yet.
No one
Is it
doing
growing?
it.
Or are you like the only guy?
I'm the only guy.
Is it big overseas?
It's huge in the US and like there's a little bit in Europe.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, it's bound to happen. Somebody's going to set up an Australian biohacking summit and everyone comes here for like a conference.
Yeah.
I'll make it happen eventually. If no one else does it, I'll do it after I've ticked off my goals. Like I'd love to do that. But you're right, man. Like it's not that well known in Australia, but I think like thankfully with Huberman, a lot of Aussies listen to Huberman.
Yeah.
Like he's actually made it more popular.
Definitely. And I think that's a big thing with your industry is that biohacking is such a, if someone doesn't know, they're like, what is that? Like they think it's like some crazy word. But I think with people like Andrew talking about it, it brings awareness.
Yeah.
So they actually like, oh yeah, I know what biohacking is. It's not as
not
crazy
as
as the
fringe or-
name sounds, you know?
Yeah.
So then it helps people like yourself.
Yeah.
Then people will actually delve into it a bit more.
Well, when people think of like biohacking, they think of like chips instead of
Yeah,
like,
exactly
all that.
right. Well, you know, it's true. If people got no idea and they're not really into that space.
Because of the word hack.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Hack is a shit, like it's not a nice word.
Yeah, yeah.
It's also associated with negative things.
Yeah.
Like you're like trying to shortcut, but
Yeah.
it's like bio-optimizing.
Definitely, yeah.
You know,
I think you have to be careful with that.
Speaking
Some
of
people just,
supplements,
yeah.
I think we got to ask this question. If you had one
Oh, yeah.
supplement to
Oh.
pick for the rest of your life,
you can only take one.
what would it be in terms of that covers all the bases that you could cover?
it would be taurine.
Taurine?
Yeah,
What was that?
it ticks off a lot of the boxes. I'm looking to satisfy. Like it's a longevity amino acids. Research come out that it can actually extend lifespan in animal models. It delays aging in a variety of ways in these animal models. It helps with like just buffering fatigue during exercise, so minimizing lactic acid buildup. It's anti-anxiety to a degree. Like it actually helps to like mellow you out a little bit, make you feel, and a potent stress reducing supplement in my opinion. Like when I take it, I feel like I can handle more. And if I can handle more, I can just do more, you know.
Also, out of personal interest here, because now we're talking about supplements and what to take or not to
Yeah.
take. Do you think, like, in the professional sports space, do you think it's almost PEDs, I'll say, in brackets, almost a bit overregulated by WADA, SADA, all these corporations, in that, like, there's still, I guess, a space for that? You know, is it just way too regulated?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because there's a new Olympics that's emerging, which is open at like
So
drug
enhanced-
permitted
yeah.
Olympics. Where
Jeez,
you can-
really?
It's called the Enhanced Games.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even know.
Part of it.
Oh,
Sign Maddie up. I think in terms of, look, PED usage in elite sports and professional sports is like ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Like, and even the guys that say that they're not on stuff, like they're on stuff.
Yeah.
But you ask yourself the question, like, is it because that's what it takes to get there? Well, if it's the difference between 1% to 2%, that might be the difference.
For some
Exactly
people,
right.
So it might be that, you know, part of what I do, like with the content creation side, is like I want to showcase like these are PEDs because I do talk about PEDs.
Yeah.
I talk about peptides. I've spoken a little bit about SARMs. I just want to like educate on like this is what they do. This is what you need to be aware of. Like this is what you can do to offset the side effects.
for sure.
But yeah, I'd say like the usage it's
Personally, I think there's a space for it in rehab,
recovery, injury.
that sort of. Because at the end of the day, being a professional sports person is your
Life,
job.
man.
It's your life.
Yeah.
100%.
If you can, you know, half the time you're out from being your job, not getting paid in some sports if you don't play, stuff like this,
You want
sponsorship
contract
deals,
for
all the
next
rest of it.
season
Exactly.
or whatever.
I think why not? Like
Yeah.
if it is safe enough,
I'm in the same.
Yeah,
Do you know, like,
I
why
feel
is
the
that
same.
banned?
they've got the best doctors in the world. And
Exactly, you
bloods,
do it
this,
properly.
that. I'm pretty sure there's a way you can do certain things in a safe way, I think.
Yeah. I was actually on, it's funny you mentioned this. I got invited to collaborate with a company that actually does like the sports tape for Barcelona Football Club. And they do like this cream as well. It's from Italy.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Cetilar, like Cetilar.
Right.
They've I don't know, they've helped like a lot of professional teams. And they're like pharmaceutical, they're like a pharma company, like big company recommending these products. And I'm like, you know, there would be a lot of benefit these athletes can gain from products that accelerate healing, like recovery.
Yeah.
You know, we've got the old methods, which we were doing way before it was popular, ice bars.
Yeah, I remember those.
And now look how popular.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like everyone's
Everyone's
doing that, man. So yeah, definitely time and place for it. But I'm not anti-PED. Like it's guys want to. Humans are always going to be on the hunt for things to enhance their body. So like, just have to educate.
Yeah, I think that's.
I think that's
thing.
exactly right. That's the main thing because you're not really going to stop people.
No,
It's about making it as sort of safe and doing as less stupid things as possible because we see how easily accessible information is these days, especially to like young kids and stuff. So if you can put out good information, you might help. Like,
and we've also been as humans, like we've always been on the hunt for things, even going back to like the indigenous days, like looking for tobacco leaves to you know, like they were using things back then.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
It's crazy. I guess we'll sort of start wrapping it up here, but without giving away your secrets here for your course and everything else, just very broadly, I'm a male in my 20s, teens. How do I ensure that I'm feeling good?
Yeah. So when it comes to like dialing everything in to feel like fully optimized, waking up with boundless energy, like motivation, confidence, definitely testosterone, that whole cascade, the pathway, DHT, estrogen, prolactin is going to play a role. So making sure you're getting like blood work done in that regard. But then also thyroid function, like this is often a neglected element of peak performance is like, there's no possible way you can wake up feeling warm, have energy, and feel like confident if your thyroid is sluggish. That's basically your rate limiting thing for metabolism. And if your thyroid is not in peak form, like I've seen athletes that have like really good thyroid function, really high testosterone. You just look at them like, yeah, it makes sense. Like you're a beast. Like
Yeah.
So I think just for the guys listening in, I'd say like one important point to emphasize is there is a difference between subjective symptoms and then doing objective blood testing. Like look at the data. Don't be afraid to investigate what's happening in your body. And it is your right to do that. So like go out there. If you're not feeling great, do a blood test. And that's where like someone like myself can analyze the blood test, suggest protocols specifically for their test, which is something that I do, you know, frequently for clients.
If you need to get your blood work done, hit Lucas up.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah,
Great
it's a
chat.
pleasure, guys.
Something a bit different.
It's so
Good,
fun.
man.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So if you haven't, make sure you follow Ergogenic Health.
Yeah, on
Obviously.
YouTube, just search Boost Your Biology. So go and subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Go buy his course too. Whatever.
That's it.
Thank you once again for joining us for another episode. Make sure, again, to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. Oh, now we're on TikTok too.
as well, yeah.
Maddie's smashing out the TikTok videos. And yeah, we'll see you next week with another big guest. Make sure you tune in. See you soon.